Hi, how are we doing everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're going to be talking about a very simple shallowing movement, or an important component of having the ability to shallow the golf club. And what we can see when we look at somebody like Adam Scott's golf swing is how functional it is in terms of his ability to move and time the club, but also how aesthetically pleasing it is to look at. Shallowing the golf club basically means that the club, if you swing up to the top for us, George, and actually just pause, and let's just move this around. It basically means that in the very early transition of the golf swing, so if you just pause prior to left arm horizontal, so come down here, the shaft basically is more horizontally placed than it was going up. So if the shaft goes up on this angle and then comes down on a more horizontal angle, that essentially means that basically you are shallowing the golf club. The question would be, why are you shallowing the golf club? Well, there are potential benefits. One is that you would hold on to lag for longer, so that would be one benefit of it. But you'd obviously have to make sure that you match this up with rotational movement as well. Here's the thing, right? How are you going to shallow the club? So if you swing up to the top again and pause, you're going to shallow the club by basically keeping the right elbow driving more up and in front of you. Exactly. So the more that the elbow goes this direction, so from a face-on perspective, we can see left arm horizontal for us. You can see the right elbow appears. So if you're somebody who's swinging in front of a mirror now, or at your next opportunity, you want to basically make sure that in the transition, your right elbow, your trail elbow, isn't higher than your lead arm, right? Because that would mean that the shaft would come down too vertical. But also what we can see, and although hopefully we'd all understand that, actually what I want you to concentrate on is keeping the left arm connected to the body, right? So if you swing up to the top and pause for us, George, actually I want you to kind of imagine, and we've seen this before with things like a towel drill, or imagine that you're kind of, tucking something under your left armpit. And the reason why this is important is that if you start to initiate the downswing, I want you to feel connected. I want you to feel connected coming in towards the transition. So for some golfers that try and do things like drive the elbow, what certain golfers will do, similar to George, is that if I ask him to drive the elbow, exactly, he would drive the elbow, but if you actually took it very literally, you'd end up moving like this, what you've also got to do is make sure that your lead arm is staying very connected to your body, because otherwise obviously the club would just end up moving too horizontally in space. So what we see with Adam Scott's, and the reason why we're using him as an example, as opposed to say somebody like Dustin Johnson or many others, is that there is a shallowing motion in the golf swing, but it's not excessive. So it's not a million miles away from working on a single axis, essentially meaning he works up and down the same sort of plane line. And what I would suggest is, to get a simple shallowing move, you do need to understand that you need rotation in your golf swing, and the trail elbow needs to function very much in this way. But what I would also just kind of bear in mind and focus on is that basically your left arm in the backswing and coming down wants to be connected towards your chest, because like I said, for some golfers, if you just go with the idea of driving your elbow, I bet you're wondering how on earth you're actually going to hit the golf ball. So the feeling would be, if you swing up, the feeling would be that you would trigger a rotation, this elbow's driving, this arm's tucked in. And then what that'll do is, if you put this down, then you'll start to get this sort of subtle shallowing move. So if you now swing up to the top and now excessively drive the elbow, we'd get more of a shallow, exactly. So I think that Adam Scott is a good example of somebody who swings it conventional, and who's not a million miles away from working on a single axis. And I think for those that have been watching the channel and you've been maybe concentrating very much on hip rotation and elbow driving, then maybe just make sure that your left arm is also staying connected to your chest, because it would help you still enable a slight shallowing, but it would also help you just understand actually how you're still going to be able to get the club on the back of the golf ball. So it's another little thing just to kind of bear in mind, and hopefully you appreciate it, and hopefully you enjoy the video, that basically regardless as to what you're trying to do with the shaft in space when you're swinging the club, this elbow is always going to drive, this is always going to rotate, and this is always going to want to stay connected. The more disconnected this is, and the more rotation, the more shallowing. The more connected and maybe less rotation, the less of a shallowing. Maybe more like the difference between somebody like Adam Scott and Dustin Johnson. It's just a case of choosing what suits you best. Hopefully you enjoy the video. I'll catch up with you guys again soon.